Hi, my name is Dana Finkel, and today I will be talking about the destruction of archaeological sites. First, I want to ask you, what do you think would become of the world if we could no longer reflect on our past or look back on our history? Could you imagine a world where the Eiffel Tower didn't exist? A world without the Statue of Liberty or Stonehenge? Could you imagine not only a world where you couldn't even look back at pictures or read about them because they were destroyed too quickly for archaeologists to document their existence? Fortunately, that world does not exist. However, if we're not careful, it could become a reality. While the history of the Eiffel Tower, Statue of Liberty, and Stonehenge have already been recorded and publicized, there are many archaeological sites that have not yet had that luxury. These archaeological sites are a glimpse into our past, informing us about what people were like centuries ago. They tell stories of our ancestors and how to learn from our past mistakes. Unfortunately, these sites are very fragile and are deteriorating. As a result, we are losing important windows in history. There are many different elements that are impacting these archaeological sites, such as tourism and vandalism, war, and climate change. Archaeologists are desperately trying to slow the damage being done to all of these sites before they become extinct. Throughout my presentation, I will be discussing some of the major factors that are causing the deterioration of these historical sites, as well as some possible solutions. Although archaeological sites are meant to be visited, tourism takes its toll on them. Just walking through a site damages it a little bit, though unfortunately, there are worse things that tourism can do. First of all, there are what Nick Romeo calls sites of conscience, which are generally underfunded because they expose dark and difficult periods of human history. People do not want to visit sites that remind them of our past mistakes, and so these sites are unable to raise enough money to be restored or renovated. This means that sites of conscience will likely be some of the first sites to disappear, and it can be argued that they are some of the most important sites available to people, as they are a reminder of what not to do. An example of this is Bunce Island in Sierra Leone. Bunce Island is an 18th century British trading post where thousands of captured African slaves were held before transport to America. While this island has a tragic past, it is an important part of human history. Vandalism is another problem that contributes to the deterioration of archaeological sites. It is a crime that used to be rare, as the majority of archaeological sites are in remote locations. However, vandalism is now much more common because of the remoteness of these sites. Part of the reason for this is because of the Facebook effect. The Facebook effect is when social media is used to publicize vandalism, which in turn feeds the desire for others to add to it. Some people look at the vandalism as a challenge or an opportunity to leave their own mark at a historical site. Looting, another form of vandalism, is one of the biggest threats to archaeological sites and is also made more popular by social media and the internet. Furthermore, budget cuts have caused a reduction in the number of rangers that are able to keep an eye on things, which creates more opportunities for thieves to steal artifacts. There are even reality TV shows that glamorize looting, encouraging the public to try it out for themselves. Because of the lack of security and the media talking about how much money can be made from looting, even respectable citizens are tempted to turn to the dark side, so to speak. War also negatively influences historical sites. Bob McDonald mentions how, just recently, ISIS destroyed irreplaceable statues, reliefs, and the remains of an entire city more than 3,000 years old. The damage ISIS did to this city is more than just vandalism because it is an attempt to rewrite history. ISIS is not the only extremist group to cause so much destruction that it is labeled a war crime. In 2001, the Taliban destroyed the 1,500-year-old Buddhas of Bayman in Afghanistan, which were the largest statues of Buddha anywhere, and Hitler infamously tried to rewrite history by burning books. Sadly, the destruction caused by these extremist groups leaves archaeologists with very little to work with and make it very difficult for them to try to salvage the truth of what really happened in the past. The result is that humankind is left with huge gaps in history that we will never be able to get back. We will never know the whole truth of past events and will forever be ignorant of large chunks of history. MacDonald emphasizes this by saying, That's why the loss of any ancient artifact is a huge loss to the story of who we are and how we got here. It's more than vandalism. It's a crime against the foundations of humanity. These groups did not just destroy a few artifacts, they decimated an entire culture. Climate change is another contributing factor in the destruction of archaeological sites. Andrew Curry says, for countless communities, archaeology can be a source of local identity, pride, and even income. However, climate change is changing all of that, as rising sea levels are eating away at coastal sites, increased rainfall is eroding mud brick ruins, creeping desert sands are blasting the traces of ancient civilizations, and the melting of ice is causing millennia-old organic remains to rot. The International Panel on Climate Change estimates that the world's temperature has risen about 2 degrees in the past century, thanks in part to an increase in carbon dioxide that traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere. As a result, the world's oceans have risen 4 inches in that time. Weather patterns have also gotten less predictable and more extreme. If not corrected, all of this will continue to worsen to a degree that would be disastrous for the world. One site that has been affected by climate change includes the Swiss glaciers. Climate change has caused the glaciers to melt, which have revealed many important artifacts. While the melting of the glaciers may seem like a good thing, because it is allowing archaeologists to locate and study more artifacts, it also means that even more artifacts are being exposed to the elements, causing them to rot away and disappear forever before archaeologists have time to study and document their existence. The ancient city of Chan Chan in Peru is a good example of an archaeological site that is currently deteriorating, and has been for 500 years, and is in need of restoration and protection from weather. Michael Turtle informs us that Chan Chan was built around 850 AD, and it was the largest city in the Americas before the arrival of Europeans. Made entirely of adobe bricks, Chan Chan covered about 20 square kilometers and was made up of thousands of buildings. The city was once populated by over 30,000 people and consisted of grand palaces, public meeting places, and an urban center. Chan Chan was abandoned in 1470, and about half a century later, the Spanish arrived and looted the city, stealing everything of value that they could get their hands on. Because the city lacked maintenance and protection, it fell prey to the weather, which it has been fighting for 500 years. Now, climate change could destroy what is left of the city. Because Chan Chan is made almost entirely of mud, it can be easily washed away by rain, and scientific records show that the amount of the frequency of rain is also much higher now than it has been in the previous centuries, so damage is occurring at a much faster rate. Because of this threat, Chan Chan's access is limited to visitors. There is now only one citadel open to the public. You can walk along roads through the city grounds, but most of the buildings are now just mounds of dirt. The city is currently listed as an at-danger site on UNESCO's World Heritage List, and is ashamed to see a once flourishing city crumble. The city managed to maintain much of its form through centuries of abandonment, but unless something is done, climate change might finally mean the end for Chan Chan. If Chan Chan is lost, it means that a piece of Peruvian history is lost. People will no longer be able to visit the once strong ancient city, and it will eventually be forgotten. It is clear that the deterioration of archaeological sites is a growing concern around the world. If nothing is done, many archaeological sites will disappear completely, along with the history and culture that they preserve. I agree with Cosby when he says that we must use the technology available to us to combat archaeological destruction in the backcountry. We have access to motion detector cameras and many other forms of technology that could be placed at archaeological sites in order to deter looters and vandals. Budget cuts may be an issue, but installing video cameras is much cheaper than hiring security guards. There are cameras available today that can snap incredibly clear photos and high-definition video, even at night. The photos can be instantly sent to a computer located anywhere in the world, and remote human monitors can alert authorities within minutes after the photo is captured. Additionally, any attempt to disable the camera would most likely be caught by the unit, and a picture of the perpetrator would instantly be sent off before the vandalism occurs. These cameras would definitely help reduce the amount of damage done to historical sites, if not completely eradicate it. It is also good to keep in mind that removal or destruction of any artifact from a historical site is immoral as well as illegal. Looting or vandalism, no matter how small, is a selfish and disrespectful act. As mentioned in the Guide to Best Practices for Archaeological Tourism, looting destroys a site and compromises the integrity of information that may be retrieved from it. In order to minimize your impact on a site, there are some precautions you can take while visiting. First, never climb, sit, or stand on archaeological structures or remains. Never remove anything from an archaeological site. If you pick something up from the surface, return it to the same spot before you move on. It is best to not pick anything up. Do not enter an area where archaeological excavations are taking place or where there are open archaeological excavations. Do not enter an area where archaeological excavations are taking place or where there are open archaeological excavations. Respect all signage and fences. Don't leave anything on the site. Carry all your belongings and trash away. Do not take off-road vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, mountain bikes, etc. through archaeological sites. Report vandalism at sites. You may be the only one that sees it. If you want to view the full guide to best practices for archaeological tourism, you can visit the Archaeological Institute of America's website. Following these precautions minimizes the damage done to the site and allows it to last longer. Unfortunately, protecting archaeological sites from weather and climate change will not be as easy to do. Archaeologists cannot control the weather, nor can they fix climate change. However, they can take steps to slow down the destruction of these sites. Coverings to help prevent rain from washing away the ruins protect some area of Chan Chan. With more funding, Chan Chan could increase the number of coverings or upgrade the coverings so that they are more durable. Unfortunately, not much can be done in regards to melting glacier, though if people make climate change a priority, we could reduce the speed at which they melt. Helping to resolve climate change means making lifestyle changes that reduce the amount of carbon emissions being released into the Earth's atmosphere. For example, we can focus on supporting local businesses rather than large corporations that use coal-powered factories, invest in green or solar energy, and take public transportation whenever possible. There are many other things that can be done to reduce your carbon footprint, though even small changes will help to slow the effects of climate change. Despite all of this daunting information, I still encourage people to visit historical sites. Not only is archaeological tourism a great educational resource, it also provides revenue for the sites, which can be used to protect and restore them. Archaeological tourism is a wonderful experience, and as long as you're respectful of the sites that you visit, it can continue to be a great experience for many future generations. If we use these sites to learn about history and prevent past mistakes from reoccurring, we can continue to progress and grow as a society.